Rob, welcome. How are you?
Yeah, well, thanks. A bit soggy from the rain outside, but very well. How are you?
I timed it brilliantly. It was drizzling as I arrived, and then 5 minutes later, you were like a drowned rat. So apologies for that. Apologies for that. I'm good. Thank you very much for asking. I'm very good. So, as is traditional, if you could maybe give us a bit of a potted history of your career to date, leading up to what you're doing today at Tau, please.
Yeah, well, that's a question. So, I guess I call myself a marketing technologist, and what you may ask is a marketing technologist, and how does that work? So. I guess it all started. Both my parents were working in computers and IT. My dad was a hardware and systems guy. My mother was a programmer, and I definitely was kind of that geek at school. Right, I loved rugby and computers was my thing.
Not at the same time.
Not at the same time.
No.
Not at the same time, one after the other. But kind of dinner room conversation was trying to work out. I built a database age 7, which is interesting. I was always interested in data structures and flows and how machines worked. And then having sort of scraped through a maths degree at King's in London, I ended up in the wonderful world of digital marketing. I was the guy that did everything from Excel sheets, building websites, fixing the printer, which I absolutely hated. But yeah, everything under the sun for a range of firms. Startups that got bought by Yahoo, that was Kalku, got bought by AOL with Decoder, and then managed to find myself in the world of ad agencies. Mostly around sort of 4 or 5 years at Mediacom, running data and technology, and yeah, that was great because you got to work across kind of the biggest, the biggest advertisers, the biggest companies in the land. You got to see the whole kind of the whole media glut from the digital world, which was my original background, right the way through to the TV, print out of home, and some really great people. But what I realised was that data and technology was becoming more and more critical to the world of advertisers, and it wasn't the sideshow anymore. It was starting to become, if not the main event, very, very close to being the main event, and that kind of really fostered my career, beyond that, and gave me the opinions and voice, which I think I kind of like to show, and that led to me launching with Nick King a company called Crimtan, which is a marketing technology consultancy, which did very well, and we sold to the Goodway Group sort of two and a half years ago now, and then now Tau. And Tau is an AI consultancy, but also technology business. Our whole aim is to help marketers multiply their talent and their skills by the use of AI. We develop software, we push things forward, we try and really kind of solve marketing use cases for marketing, but in order to help marketers, not to replace them.
So what are the top 3 questions marketers are asking at the moment then, as it relates to AI? What are the sort of the ones that you hear time and time again?
The first thing is it ready yet? Because there's a huge amount of hype, and they know it can help you, help your 16-year-old son write their geography essay, right? But is it actually ready for marketing? We can dive into that, but I think used well, it really is, but you've got to think about how to use it properly. I think the next question is, what do we actually do with it? Because in the world of marketing, it's not obvious, right? You can obviously help you write an email or write a report, or as it's improved, build a creative. But how do you apply that to the full marketing set of workflows is a much harder conversation. And I think crucially as well, it's how do you prove the value? Because as much as I'm a huge believer in this space, there's an awful lot of FUD out there. There's an awful lot of vaporware. And whenever you have something that's new and exciting, you'll have kind of real, genuine efforts, and then those that are trying to confuse and kind of make money out of it. And I think companies have been bought, people have been burnt a lot. So it's how do we actually going to show the real value and make sure that what you're getting is reality rather than a mess.
Okay. When we talk about AI, are we talking mostly about LLMs or large language models, or is it deeper than that in the work that you're doing?
Good question. So for what we do, it's both. It definitely leans in on GenAI, right? So LLMs. I've worked with machine learning for at least 15 years. Ran a conference or two back on that sort of back in the early 2010s. But most of what we're talking about is GenAI and LLMs, and how do we build an agentic world where lots of different agents go off and do tasks. The great thing about GenAI, though, is it actually makes traditional AI, machine learning, easier. Because if you're using any of the new tools and you want to go and spin up some Python script that does some ML clustering analysis, you can do it in seconds or minutes, and you can have an LLM as acting as an agent, kind of coordinating machine learning. So definitely both, but I think the real driver and change is the GenAI LLM piece. If that's not too many acronyms.
Yeah, lots and lots. We love an acronym, don't we? So I read a piece that you wrote recently where you said prediction is the point. What did you mean by that?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you think about what everyone knows LLMs to be famous for, it can help you write an article, an essay, or it can even help you write like a character. It can write like Einstein or write like Jeremy Clarkson if you wanted to do that. And that means that the LLM has to be able to predict from a prompt what Clarkson would write. It basically is a prediction algorithm. This whole space came from predictive text, just predicting what you wanted to write on your phone or keyboard. So LLMs inherently are trying to learn how to predict what to do. When you take them out of the world of just plain text and into the world of marketing, you're predicting something different. You're trying to predict how companies are going to grow, what marketing activity is going to lead to sales and to growth, and really to try and build out that kind of cognitive model for the marketing ecosystem, which kind of basically means a marketing model for an abstract version of reality, right? So the whole idea is that in any discipline of marketing, we use a huge amount of different forms of data to try to understand what's happening in the world. You might use your sort of experience style big data sets in terms of people who are richer, poorer, older, younger, all around the country. You've got things like your Barb to understand who's watching different sort of TV shows, and there's been some big changes on that in the last few months. Right down to data on what keywords drive sales within Google or how to run meta ads. But normally you've got all of these different data sets all strewn around a desk in a media agency or a marketing department, and they're in silos. And there's no human I've ever met who can take all of that together and use that to come up with a consistent whole about what they do. You've got ones who are amazing at trying to work out what to do in the world of, let's say, TV, or others who are really, really great at working out how to optimize a Google search keyword campaign, or working at how do we do CRM or the world of social media. But to bring all that together and be able to use that to make complete end-to-end predictions has been impossible, and AI is starting to make possible now. And ultimately, the whole point of what we're really trying to do here at Tau is combine all of those things together to help marketers, first of all, make better decisions, but then also multiply out their skills by then helping them get basic workflows done to deliver better outcomes.
Okay. So if a marketer were to ask you, should we go all in on one LLM? And the obvious benefits of that is you can roll it out across the whole marketing organization. We can train, we can understand what good looks like. We can train everyone. It's easier for everyone to use. Or should we be looking across multiple LLMs? And what are the pros and cons of both approaches, would you say?
We as an AI company use all of them. So we started out as probably an OpenAI ChatGPT shop. I think definitely our favorite right now is Claude, and we can talk about the differences. Google and Gemini have also come a hugely long way. But there is a benefit to picking one in terms of familiarity, usage, but also information and security. The CTO's only got to worry about one system as a source of a leak. So I think what you need to do is to basically have a framework for how you use AI. You need to understand what data you want to use for it, what the implications of that are, how safe is it, what security issues are needed, and how we're going to achieve that. I mean, Microsoft Copilot is without doubt the worst of all the major LLMs. It's actually a lot better than some people think it is if you get to know how to use it right, but it is a step down from the other sort of frontier models. But it is kind of baked into that Microsoft environment, which is trusted by CTOs. So that is a very valid approach. And part of what we actually do is try to help companies get the most out of Microsoft. And if you're clever with it, you can. More flexibility, though, will lead to better results. And if you're an organization like an ad agency or a kind of a fast moving department, and you can use more, you will get an awful lot more benefit, because some of the frontier tools that you get are just a step up. And if you look at the image capabilities of sort of Google and brilliantly named Nano Banana, that is a step up from anything that kind of Microsoft can offer, albeit they can port in ChatGPT now. But that's an obvious example of where you do see a difference in quality. And that does kind of apply end to end. As an individual, I would start off with one. It doesn't really matter whether you pick Claude, ChatGPT, or Gemini, but get to know one really well. Get to know how to prompt. Get to know how to do things like deep research, which is a hugely a powerful tool. Get comfortable at image generation, and then do what's called kind of your Fisher-Price My First Agent, which is called a custom GPT in OpenAI. It's called a gem in Google, where you're building your own first mini agent to do a thing. And that once you've done that, it kind of opens your eyes to what's possible.
Yeah. So if you look at the sort of the major players in LLMs at the moment, which ones, what's the pros and cons of each? Which ones are really good at certain things? I mean, Nano Banana you mentioned there seems to be, to me, in my sort of layman's terms of playing with them, seems to be the best image generator that I've used so far, for example.
So Google definitely has an advantage of what's the technical term is multimodal, which is a terrible geeky term, but yes, it's better at creating imagery, video. Google's video tools are also amazing. So Google has a big advantage on both imagery and video. It's also got what's called a context window, which is memory. It's got one of the highest levels of memory, which means you can feed more data into it. So there's definitely a big advantage there from Google. The next thing to think about, though, is kind of how do you then do conversation, coding, and thinking, which are three different things, but they are kind of all interrelated. ChatGPT kind of invented the thinking model with O1 about just 18 months ago. And not everyone's realized that you can turn on a thinking mode within your AI. Everyone's just using the normal models, but that kind of really took things forward, because it actually allowed for the LLMs to kind of think abstractly. And that's now led to the current models 5.2.
It's still predicting, right? It's not actually thinking, it's still predicting.
It's yes, it's still predicting, but it's trying to then use the predictions in sequence to solve a problem. Right. So the classic LLM challenge was, the kind of the old riddle, how do you kind of get three elements across let's say you got a duck, a fox, and a boat. River, yeah. You got to go across the river. Yeah, if you ask an old LLM to do that, it would just ask you to take it across on a boat and then walk back and get the thing that you missed. Yeah. Obviously, you can't walk back because you've got to go on the boat. Old LLMs couldn't think like that. So a modern LLM was taught to then break it down into parts, and then it was kind of asked, does it make sense to do that? And if it doesn't, then obviously you can't do it. So it kind of builds in this kind of this thinking layer. And now that happens at better and better sequencing and pace. And that's really required if you want to do anything advanced. If you want to go and plan a media campaign, for example, you've got to understand a whole range of different problems, from regulation to the country to customer behavior. There's a whole layer of abstraction that you have to go through. That was invented by OpenAI, and that gives them a big step forward. But I would say now has really been mastered by Claude. And I think Claude Opus 4.5 is a remarkable model that does so much so well. Also really amazing at coding. And tools like Claude Code are a huge step forward. Media agencies of my generation were all built on Excel. I think media agencies of the next generation will be built on Claude Code. Because it's not all about building code and apps. If you wanted to do things like, take 5 data sets from your client, and do this safely, of course, but run that through Claude Code, you can immediately get a synthesis of that into one report in seconds. And you still need to check it and make sure it's following the right logic, but it cuts down the time required to do complex tasks hugely. If you wanted to go write a quick script that would go onto the website and find all of the ad tags on all of the different pages, a big ad ops job that I've done millions of times, really, really hard, or really time consuming normally. Claude Code, it's done in 5 minutes. And I think that for companies that can kind of lead into these new techniques, have everyone able to prompt well and everyone able to do the basics, but then having a kind of core, not in a team, across all teams of people who can do those more advanced functions is kind of a real step change for a business.
Okay. So digging into each models, so the way I started off also with ChatGPT and just thought, right, I'm just going to get good at this. Did all my custom GPTs. I have many of those that now do tasks that used to take ages and now they're not. So really happy with that. But I started thinking, even though we're a super small business, what happens if, worst case scenario, OpenAI are absolutely burning through cash. They're fighting against Google, who seem to be coming up really, really strongly. And Gemini's baked into the Google ecosystem. So people use it even if they don't want to use it, but through search, they go to search, they search for something, Gemini gives them an answer. So they don't have to go and seek it out. Whereas with ChatGPT, you sort of have to go and seek it out. So what if, worst case scenario, I build a business around one platform, ChatGPT, and then ChatGPT doesn't exist one day? So that was what my thinking is. Like, I need to find time to get good at all of them and figure out what they're good at. So what other sort of risk profiles are there attached to sort of going all in on one, would you say?
Yeah, so you definitely can miss out on features. And new model. I mean, Claude yesterday released a new tool called Co-work, which we can talk about later, but I think it's going to change the game again. So you can miss out on features, and you could have a company go down. But let's talk about that quickly, because that's interesting. We built our platform so that you can literally change models on the fly. And when you have a custom GPT or a program that works, and we do much more than just custom GPTs, if we do change the model, there's a risk it won't work, but normally it does, because the instructions are fundamental, the raw data behind it is fundamental. And normally a new model with a bit of fine-tuning will work as well, and if it's a better model, better in time. So I think if you want to be able to move at the pace of AI, having the ability to switch models is really important. And it's why you need to go beyond. Custom GPTs are great for prototyping, but I don't think you should be building a business on them, because it will run out of scale pretty soon. And a lot of what we do is, how do you build that next layer of properly coded systems, or we use a platform called LangGraph. If that were to happen, though, you could take everything that you've built, download the instructions and rebuild it again somewhere else. So all wouldn't be lost. But there is a huge risk, because the companies are kind of diverging. What Anthropic and Claude are doing is really focusing on the business user, on coding, and they're really kind of looping into that use case. And I think the stats show that the vast majority of coders lead into Claude most. ChatGPT tried to go down that route last year with our 5.2, 5.1 models, but hasn't been as successful. It's not bad at coding, but it's not quite as friendly and easy. But where they've got a huge advantage is distribution. I think it was the first company to get to 1 billion users, the fastest ever. And for a relatively young company, that distribution is crazy. And I think you've seen they're releasing this new pen from Johnny Ive, whose name currently escapes me soon. So they're going much down the sort of the consumer friendly route. And then Google again is different, because it has that huge distribution again from it being Google, and you can access it natively from the Google search bar, and also the resourcing of Google. So they are, because of those different focuses, they are going to push different tools and uses. So there is a risk that you do miss out on the latest thing. The question is, does it matter? And I think for my business, which needs to be at the cutting edge of AI, it matters, right? If suddenly there's a new magic MacGuffin and we haven't got it, then that's a problem. For most businesses, any LLM will do the job you need, right? And if you're a marketing department, you can do 90% of all that you need to do within Copilot. Will it be as easy? No. Will it kind of be a bit frustrating at times? Yes. But can it do the fundamental job? Yes. So what we're going to work out is how much does the last 10% really matter? And you take a job like automating your trafficking. We know what the right answer is. It's not that complicated. I used to be a trafficker. I'm going to defend it as a discipline, but ultimately it's a solved problem. You're just going to do it, right? So fine. something like media planning or forecasting, that last 10% could be a material difference to your business. So if you kind of divide up your task going, does it just need to work or has it got to be brilliant? If it just needs to work, doesn't matter what LLM you pick. If it needs to be brilliant, and if it needs to be the best, maybe it does.
Yeah.
And it's easy to see in the world of imagery where, if you're using how good your ads look will make a huge difference to how well they perform, right? If someone using Nano Banana's ads look better than yours, that's a problem.
Mm. Yeah. Do you find as well, it might be too early, but I remember, I think it was WPP that had to use Outlook because I think A, Microsoft were one of their clients, but B, they were built off Microsoft. And you have other big businesses that are built off Google. And so they think, oh, we should go all in on Gemini. Are you finding those lines being divided already where they say, well, we've got the Google workspace, so we'll use Gemini. And have you seen anyone cross-pollinate? So we're mostly on Microsoft, but we're using Gemini because we prefer that as an LLM.
Yeah, so I think it's more complicated than that because people used to build their kind of tech stacks on, let's say, Microsoft, right? And if you think about the cloud, you might use a Microsoft Azure cloud, you might use AWS cloud or Snowflake or obviously Google's GCP, but you have that as a thing. But there's no big company in the world who doesn't work with Google from a paid search perspective, and they've obviously got into the world of cloud very successfully. And Amazon are in there as well, right? So you're having these worlds collide. You've also got other giant companies, but kind of a league below, people like sort of Adobe and Salesforce, who've kind of owned their own creative or CRM kind of worlds. And they know that if you don't use AI and become part of the AI ecosystem for a company, you can be pushed out very quickly. I mean, I built a CRM for my own business just over Christmas time, again, using Claude code. Wouldn't work for an enterprise. It wasn't meant as a commercial decision, but you can replace software now with bespoke, well-built solutions much more effectively than you could before. And it's only going to get better. So that's a huge threat to anybody who isn't owning the AI conversation. What that means is if you're a company group trying to decide what AI strategy to use, you've almost certainly got a group of people in one corner of the business using Google. They've been given free Gemini credits from Google. They've been told by their Google rep that this is the best and here's some training and go and use it and here's some lunch and, let's have a chat. And if you don't do it, literally marking you down. It's crazy the power they have sometimes. But you've got another corner of the business, let's say on Microsoft, could be on Amazon, and you've got other corners of the business that are using Salesforce. So you do get that kind of that cross-pollination and that fighting. Again, without overselling, that's kind of why we built our platform, that you can do all of them in one system. It can kind of help you cross-communicate. And how the systems communicate will be very interesting. But overall, you do need to kind of align on a methodology here, and how you align those different groups, plus 101 point solutions that do the AI thing, right? You have an AI creative builder or an AI email builder or an AI, whatever it might be, right? There's 101 different point solutions you might want to use. So there is that kind of constant fight that's happening in the organization.
Yeah. Okay. One of the other things that you said in your article was by the end of this year, marketing departments will have somewhere between 20 and 50 agents working together and in concert, if you like. Could you talk a little bit about what that might look like?
Yes, exactly. So what agents can't do is a single agent can't replace an individual. It can do research on something. So you want to go and research, let's say your business for this podcast, and AI can go and do that and find out information on previous episodes and what's going on. But you ask it to go and ring you up and tell you I'm going to be half an hour late. It's not going to do it, right? So it can't replace a whole role, and it doesn't have any authority or decision making. So if you treat AI or an agent as a proper replacement for an individual, at the moment it's just nowhere near ready, and I don't think will be for some time. But if you break down any role into a series of components, I think the recent estimates show that anything from sort of 40 to 60% of those individual tasks can be repeated. And normally what you want to do is have specialist tasks that do different things. So let's think about what that might look like. So our Signal tool has 30 data collectors that pull out signals from the market. So it'll look at things like Google Trends, it'll look at your reviews, it'll go into things like sort of open source stuff like the free version of SimilarWeb. It'll do deep research. It's going to try and find all of these things and bring it all together around an advertiser, around an industry, to help you make choices. So there's like 30 decision-making engines, sort of data collection agents there. You'll have other agents that will go and take that data and then turn it into something useful. Give me a report that we can use for making creative decisions. Give me analysis that then helps me understand messaging or growth or anything around that. So you have sort of several agents there. You're also going to have an agent that traffics your campaigns. All those hours that have been spent in the past setting up campaigns in Google or Meta or a DSP or an ad server, that should be automated. You'll have other agents that will produce your dashboard for you, but also other agents that then go into your dashboard and answer questions. So that when you come in the morning, you look at a dashboard that says sales are up or down over the weekend. Brilliant. You've then got to find out why. And but another agent can do that. Another agent can go, well, normally there's 6 reasons why sales are up or down. Is it that, or that? And come up with a report. Still recommend you check it, but it's a huge improvement to be able to instantly have a very, very good view as to what the problem might be and be able to move forward. So already within that, there's 50 agents. I think where we got to in 2025 is companies got quite good at, as you described, the custom GPT thing. Build an individual agent that help them do some tasks. Where we're coming to now and what we're helping to roll out is this multi-agent systems where you have all these different components coming back, working with their kind of respective teams, and helping the whole system grow as a result, going from an individual use of AI where one person builds a thing that they use to things to teams of AIs that work with teams of people. I think what's hugely exciting is how that leads to collective intelligence. There's no one human who can build a transatlantic jet, right, or a 747, but teams of people can. And I think teams of agents are going to be really transformative to what departments and companies can achieve.
So going into AI coding then, in a little bit more detail, what is it? How is it done? How does it differ from custom GPTs, gems, and that type of thing? Because I think sometimes people think when they hear AI agents and AI coding, they're thinking custom GPTs, gems, and I understand they're different. And why should we care about it?
Yeah, so if you wanted to see it as a starting point, go into your LLM of choice and say, write me a computer game that looks like Snake in JavaScript. And it will do it. It'll spit out a whole load of code. If you load it into a browser or into the canvas, you should have a playable game within seconds. And ever since the first version of ChatGPT, you could ask it to write you simple code. Now back then it would be a VLOOKUP for Excel or a few lines of JavaScript. What's happened though, as the LLMs have got more advanced, more compute power, more context, they've been able to, and also more training to do this, they've been able to really sort of expand their coding abilities. Now you can code directly in an LLM, and it would be, if all that existed was that would be a benefit for coders. You can also use it to check your code. So just like it can predict how to write, it can predict the lines of code that a coder would put through. But then what you've got is you've got these specialist tools, things like Claude Code, Codex, there's one called Anti-Gravity from Google, VS Studio, which are built to use these same underlying technologies, but are very much specialized to the world of coding. And a year ago, if you did that, it would be interesting and useful. You could write chunks of code that you'd have to check yourself, but it would write it for you and it would probably work. And if you wanted to put your code base, basically all that you've written into a system or chunks of it, it would do so and find errors or find opportunities to improve. But it would make mistakes half the time. Now the success rate for kind of well-prompted, if you like, coding jobs is over 90% and growing quickly. What that means is that the role of an engineer is different. Now, first of all, I'm a real believer in engineers, but it means that rather than having to do the fairly laborious job of having to precisely write lines and lines of code, they become more like the architect or the conductor, telling the agents what code to write, helping it when the systems go wrong, and ensuring that the final output is of a high quality. So a bit like, again, when a good writer uses AI to write, it'll put in a good prompt to start with to write the article of choice. It'll be their kind of core idea and their themes and their direction. And then when it comes back, again, like almost sort of like a film director, you're kind of going, well, that bit's good, that bit's not so good, that bit needs to change, and getting to a final product. The same is now true for an engineer. The engineer is now, in many cases, and I'm probably going to get hate mail from some engineers now, but it's less about core code writing and more about conducting the agents that write this code. And I say agents because you can have 6 or 7 running at any one period of time. Definitely vetting the final output. We can't ship sloppy. And then pushing it all together into a working system. What does it mean? Because this is really transformational. First of all, it means ideation, bringing your first version, can be done literally in an hour. We can go into a workshop, you and I, we might go, right, what do we want to do, right? Do we want to go and build a new app to go with this podcast, and also a new marketing campaign that goes off it that's going to do something? We can build a first version in an hour, right? And it won't be perfect, and an engineer would look at it with horror, but it will work. You'll be able to see something and do it. And I think when you can see a working version that fast, it sparks off ideas. Crucially, is it going to work? Is it long-term viable? What does it need? What does good look like in the future? It then allows for development of software to move at huge pace. I mentioned my CRM project. That would normally be beyond me technically and taking a team months and years to do. It can now be done in a matter of weeks. To make it enterprise ready, rather longer, but still a fraction of what it would have taken before. What this means is, and we've only been in this world now for, I think since last summer, where it's been really a viable, best way to get things done. But what that means now is we're going to have an explosion of new products and technologies. And we're going to see a massive boost in productivity from departments that use these skills and those that don't. And not only in the world of pure engineering, because what people have realized is that these systems that allow you to build apps on the fly can also be used to analyze your expenses. They can also be used to do data science at huge speed. You've basically got a data scientist in your pocket now if you've got Claude Code. If you wanted to produce imagery down a banana, well, that's great. But let's say you want to produce 100 images and pick the best 30 to use in your latest presentation. You can now literally throw that up into these systems and have it spit out each answer and actually start to measure which one's best. So I built a little tool which throws out infographics. I put the ones that I like, put the ones that I don't, and it learns. Now, my taste in graphics is probably terrible, so it's not going to work the best, but directionally, it's a great use case. And people said that last year was going to be the world of agents. It wasn't. It was the world of one particular sort of agent, which was the coding agent. And we haven't yet seen the output yet, but it's coming literally this quarter. We're starting to see the huge explosion of products off the back of it.
Well, I wanted to ask you about trust and reliability. And I'm going to give you a story to sort of start off from. So I know when we talked before the podcast, you built yourself an AI chief of staff, I think you called it. I've done a very similar project. I called it a personal assistant, but essentially it's a custom gem that has my workspace plugged into it, my Gmail plugged into it, my tasks plugged into it, my forecasting and CRM plugged into it. And the idea was that I could ask it a question. It could go to multiple different sources to find the answer and come back and give me an answer. And last week, it was working perfectly and I was really chuffed with it. And then this week, I'd done nothing at all inside the gem. It couldn't find. It said I don't have access to tasks. I was, well, you did last week. What's going on? And it started giving me my to do from like 4 weeks ago, and like now. Because I knew that it was wrong, that not necessarily a massive problem. But if you start using, you mentioned earlier about marketers coming in and looking at their dashboard and it's telling them how sales went up and down over the weekend. What if it's wrong and you don't notice it's wrong and you start making decisions off, maybe you overtrust what the AI has given you. So where do you think we are with that? I suppose the question is how close are we to being able to trust what AI does?
So I think trust is an interesting question, isn't it? I think one of the really important things we need to do here is the concept of verification. So a generation ago, people would be cross with you if you looked at Wikipedia to do your history homework or any research or anything, right? From Wikipedia, you get laughed at. But I think why? Wikipedia is a great first step. Right? If you want to quickly go and find out what's going on for your history homework in the Spanish Civil War or something, it's a great first step. If you're then going to use it as the basis of a whole argument, you need to check what's going on. The crucial thing is that, and Wikipedia does well, is it shows references as to where it's going. So you can start to uncover, why does it think that? Is it fair? In the world of AI, I think we're in exactly the same space. And I think the really important thing that when you're asking an AI to do something is to be able to ask it, why do you think that? Or where did that data come from? Hallucinations have got a lot more rare, or the idea that they can just make stuff up, but they still definitely exist. So let's say our system says sales are down on the weekend because the brand search campaign hit sales cap, right? Or hit your spend cap. Thing to do then is to go and check, did that happen? It's told you exactly what happened. If you want to ask it how to verify it, it will tell you how to verify it. Someone's then got to verify it. So what you've done is speed up the point of getting to the answer. What no one should do right now is go, that happened because AI told me so, right? And I think this is a real point of onboarding, governance, as to how do we use it to get the benefit without potentially having the challenge of it going wrong. And I think it's trying to, how do you gate what decisions do you want it to make and what decisions do you not want it to make? Also, which AI do you use? So in our world of marketing, the world of AI has been used for quote unquote algorithmic spending and bid management has been the phrase for at least 15 years now, probably longer. Machine learning doesn't hallucinate like GenAI. It is a more reliable, robust system. Now, any algo can go haywire, and you can have some unexpected results when strange things happen. Just look at the 2007 crash. So everything requires some level of human in the loop checking, I think. So I guess what I'm trying to get to is we need to make sure that when we design processes, we understand the fallibility that's possible. Is the benefit worth the potential risk? And then move forward responsibly. I'm a huge believer that the benefit is so huge that you have to kind of go there. But I also fully advocate that you have to have human level in the loop understanding to check. And it's kind of the wisdom of a good marketeer, of a good systems person, of any role that you might take, someone who's had that experience and kind of been burnt before to go, hold on, that's not right, and check. I think it's always funny, isn't it? The number of people who you see typing numbers into a calculator and trusting the results, and they might put in they might type it in incorrectly or something might go wrong. But they blindly believe the results, even though in your head you can go, that's ridiculous, right? And I think I'm sure you must have seen the same thing on spreadsheets, people kind of believing numbers because they assume that the machine can't be wrong. The machine probably isn't wrong, but something has gone wrong in the process. Mm.
So we've talked a lot about big companies. I wanted to talk to you very briefly about small companies. Do you think, and I suppose this question is sponsored by Thomas from CEO. I was talking to him about this recently. From ReadPeak, the CEO at ReadPeak. We were saying that maybe small companies have an advantage over big companies because they can start. It's much easier for them to scrap what they've done before and build from the ground up using AI than maybe a bigger company might be sort of sticking AI onto existing legacy systems. Would you agree with that? And maybe you could expand upon your thoughts.
I do broadly agree. I think there are pros and cons to that argument. So I definitely think building from scratch is better. When you're trying to adopt AI within the world of marketing, you've really kind of got two approaches. One is the holistic approach, where you kind of slowly change practices and kind of expand from sort of centralized centers of excellence and kind of grow that way. The other way would be to have a shadow team doing it a whole new way from scratch and have that slowly take over from the whole. One is, I think, much better for the team, but I mean, there's a debate as to what's the right way to do that. I think a new company, you do have the opportunity to, as you say, build from the ground up in that new way, and we are going to see an awful lot of new companies emerge that transform every space that we're in. And I think if we look at the industry 5 years from now, we're going to see a whole lot of new logos in presentations on screens and all around our lives. The counter to that is that the big companies are the ones who have the money, and they may have other moats. So if you look at what OpenAI was a huge challenger to Google. And I think Larry and Sergey, the original founders, came out of retirement almost to go, right, we've got to fight back, And a year later, I think it's clear that Google are probably winning the AI race at the moment. Why? Well, they've got a huge moat. Their core paid search and YouTube products make print money. So if there is an AI debate of a loss of the burst, as people call it, although I don't think that's going to happen at the moment, Google would survive that because it's got a huge moat of money. It's also got a huge moat of users. Every time it launches a product, it can be pushed out to hundreds of millions of users in seconds. And obviously, the other moat is that their ability to hire talent with all that budget is high. So you've definitely got a large company advantage. But I think there's never been a better time to be a small business, because you can really, from the ground up, try to innovate and just disrupt.
Okay, and then taking it from a small company down to an individual. If you're an individual working in a big company and your company has blanket blocked all AI through sort of work computers, is that career limiting at this stage? Because it feels like everyone's going to need to learn AI in some way, shape, or form, and if you're blocked access to it, is that a problem? I think
it probably is a problem. What I'd encourage that individual to do would be to learn it, privately. Definitely don't break company regulation. I'm talking about outside of hours and other tasks that you do,
devices, etc.
Yeah, but anyone can learn. One of the things I hear a lot is that people haven't got time to learn AI, and it's for the next generation. It's not true. I think anybody can learn to prompt better. Anybody can learn to use things like deep research and image creation. Anybody can learn to build a custom GPT. If you do that, you're ahead of 90% of the world, right? And do that, and then think. Once you've done that, open your eyes to how that can impact your role, your life, and everything that you do. And I think you'll be really, really kind of surprised. For those that work for a company, I really think that what they've got to do is try and explain to them, going, look, hey, I know from outside of work that this has a huge benefit. Hey, imagine if I had this, I could do this. And I think they've just got to constantly push.
So final thought then, if you had some advice for marketers who perhaps have been following the trends and maybe dabbling a little bit, but hadn't really sort of materially integrated AI into their systems, where should they start? What would be the first thing to do?
Yeah, so pick a system. It doesn't matter which. Google, ChatGPT, Claude. As I say, learn how to do better prompting, learn how to do a custom GPT, learn deep research, learn image creation, and then just start to engage and start talking to it. And it doesn't matter what job you do, ask the AI how it can help you. Literally go, look, I'm an analyst, I do reporting all day. How can AI help me do that better, faster, and what have you? And by doing that and leaning in, they're going to have I believe, a huge step up. Ask for help. People are actually pretty good actually at just giving advice and help, and find your friendly AI person who's done a bit more, and see if they can help you kind of push forward. But also recognize your own value in this system. In a world that's changing fast, we are going to add AI to almost every process within the whole world. But what we need, therefore, is people who really understand that world to be the guardians and the gatekeepers and the drivers, right? The subject matter experts that are pushing the adoption. If you do that, you're going to find that your value, and I think actually your happiness, is going to really increase, because it's actually a really fun task to do, to kind of be designing these new systems that kind of take things forward. And there's going to be a huge amount of change coming up. It is going to be quite scary. But if you can do that, you can kind of take control for it for yourself. I think there's going to be good outcomes.
Brilliant. Nice way to end, Rob. Thanks very much for being on the podcast. Much appreciated, mate.
Yeah, thank you. It's been great.
Cheers.